standing in my lap, but you may hear him from time to time if someone walks on his sidewalk. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, just starting off this week. Hopefully you guys had a wonderful weekend. As you know, last week, those of you who were here last Friday, I was in New Hampshire, and I flew home from Boston on Saturday. So my weekend basically consisted, once I got home, of catching up on things, paying bills, cleaning up, unpacking, laundry, all of those things, running errands, running my kids around, getting stuff taken care of. But I'm interested in you guys. What was something fun you did over your weekend? All right. So if you want to throw something in the chat, do that. If you want to speak to us, just say in the chat you have something to say and I will call on you. And I would love to hear what you have to say. But what was something you did for fun over your weekend? All right. Feel free to type that in now or let me know that you want to share and I will call on you. Ooh, zip lining, that sounds fun. Good days to go swimming, definitely. Tanning, nice. Beach, nice. Sounds like we're gonna have nice tanning, swimming, beach weather here in a couple days. So this weekend coming up, you have the opportunity. All right, not feeling good. That's not good. Never fun to be sick. Grad party's good. Grad party for your brother. That's a lot of work. Hopefully that went okay, Paige. Birthday party's good. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you guys did some fun things this weekend, which is good. And the nice thing is we have 4th of July coming up this weekend. So that may involve some fireworks if you're firework people. But the nice thing is it's going to be, sounds like this train's going to move through and it's going to be back to some sun, which I like the sun. It's nice to have a break from time to time. But second thing I want to talk about is I enjoyed reading your letters to me. A lot of you turned those in, submitted those, which was great. I did read through those and I did post some comments for each of you. And just thankful for sharing what you guys shared in terms of allowing me to get to know you a little bit more, which is interesting. And basically the best way for me to respond to that is I sent you some private comments to your letter. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes right now. If you want to open up your Google Classroom, and if you want to open up your letter, you can read what I wrote to you. If you want to respond to that or if a response is needed, feel free to respond. If not, you can just read what I wrote. But I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. And then we will move on to a couple other things for today. So why don't you take a minute to do that? I'll give you about another minute here to find that comment, and feel free to respond to me if you want. All right. If you were not here last week, or you were not able to finish your letter to me, that is something you still can do if you want. Sometime if you want to do it later today after class, feel free to do that, and I will read through those as they come in as well. So if you missed that and want to do that, feel free to do that. I would enjoy getting to know you guys a little bit more. But if you already did that, obviously, then you're good to go. All right, so as you are finishing up reading those comments, maybe typing me a comment back if you want. I wanted to share with all of you a few things that you shared with me. So in terms of introducing myself to you, you guys know me as Brian or Mr. Larson. So those who've been around have seen me for quite a few summers now. Those of you who are new at Upward Bound, this is the first time you met me, but I've been in this program for a while. And I'm going to focus on my high school self. So this is what I would have been like if I was in your chair right now as a sophomore, as a freshman, as a junior, as a senior in high school. I went by Brian in high school. A lot of my friends called me Lars, short for Larson, and a lot of other things as well. I was involved in school and sports. I played basketball and tennis. I was in National Honor Society. I liked being at school. I liked hanging out at school because I could be around my friends, and that was an easy way to do that. We did not have Upward Bound in my school, so I was not a part of Upward Bound. But if I had that opportunity in high school, I think it would have been a great organization and club to be a part of to get me ready for college. Would have been great. So as far as my English and my class history, I was a student who enjoyed learning. I didn't necessarily always enjoy doing homework. I like to do some, but I would much rather hang out with my friends, socialize, play video games, play music, listen to music, do all that stuff than homework. But because it was expected, I did it most of the time. I was always interested in science. I enjoyed learning how science worked. I enjoyed nature. Math was enjoyable for me because it came easy to me. Once math got hard, I didn't like it anymore because it was hard, and I didn't know how to figure it out. So then I started, once I hit probably about middle of high school, sophomore, junior year, I started stop liking math because it was too hard for me, and I didn't like that challenge. English, I enjoyed at times, I disliked at times, depending on my teacher, depending on what we're doing. Anytime we did grammar or, sentence diagramming, or my teacher was mean or did assignments that I didn't like the class. Anytime I was able to be more creative and do some reflection and some interpretation and some thinking, I started to like English more. My last couple years of high school, my junior and senior year, I started to like English a lot more. I had two very good teachers my junior and senior year. But when I left high school, I never thought I would be an English teacher. All right. Never really entered my mind. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but that idea definitely was not in my head. And probably my favorite subject in high school was probably history and learning about history, and learning deeper about the things that I learned when I was younger about different historical events, whether in the US or around the world. So COVID in my life, in the last 15 months, like all of us, it's been an up and down roller coaster. Fortunately, I have not gotten sick. No one near me, no one close to me has gotten sick, and it has been impacted by that. I did have lost some people who I know, older people, people that I used to work with who long since retired, were infected and ended up passing away because of it. So it definitely has impacted me a little bit. But like most of us, it's been an up and down roller coaster trying to figure out life, trying to figure out how we survive in this crazy times. And thankfully and luckily, I feel like we are definitely on the downside of this, hopefully, as more and more are becoming vaccinated. Um, the spread's getting less and less, and locally things are looking much better. But like many of you wrote about, and like I thought about throughout this whole year, there were good days, there were not so good days. There were days where I felt like everything was crazy and I didn't know where to go. I was claustrophobic in my house. I wanted to get out. I missed people. Um, and then there are other days that things were good, and there are positives. I got to spend a lot of time with my family, and focus on my own kids, which was good. I got to let some stuff go, not to have sports or other things, filling time, was a positive in certain ways. Being able to just sit down and play some card games with my kids and do things like that. That was a lot of fun. So, it was definitely an up and down roller coaster, like many of you mentioned. And I think anytime you go through something like this, there's going to be ups and downs. And a lot of you wrote about that. And I think that's, um, you had a lot of interesting and good perspective on that. As we continue to push forward, we're going to continue to work through, this last 15, 16 months and kind of what's happened. And as we continue to come out and grow through this. So my last thing with my story, I told you a little bit about this last time, but I switched schools between my 8th and 9th grade year, and that was a chapter in my life that was kind of impactful in terms of me growing up a lot and maturing a lot at a certain point in my life, and that really set the tone and set the table for um, becoming much more confident as a person and believing in myself and carrying that confidence when I went off to college. So that was a really impactful moment. That's a story I could write about, but really there's lots of different stories in my life. Um, when my family grew with each of my kids, those are impactful moments. How I met my wife, that's an impactful moment, and getting together with her and marrying her and starting our relationship together, that was an impactful moment. And then just the challenges you face in life as well. I think the advisors and would all agree that when you go to college and even before college, you get pushed academically and you get challenged on how to do things, whether it's math and you struggle in math in high school and it's hard and you don't like it anymore, and how you push through these challenges, either academically or socially, are very impactful. And obviously this last 15 months with COVID has been one of those situations where there's been a lot of challenge and a lot of ups and downs. So that is a little bit about my story. All right. So I wanted to share that with you so you feel you get a chance to get to know me a little bit as well. And instead of having you read what I wrote, I just told you. The other thing you need to know about me is I really like tea, and it's just a great way to start the day. So I'm having a nice cup of black lemon lift tea right now, and it's just awesome. So if you're not a tea drinker, I strongly recommend it. It's a great way to start the morning. It tastes a lot better than coffee, in my opinion. That's just my thought. So if you want any tea suggestions, let me know, and I can give you some tea suggestions. So if you have this book with you, if you want to take it out, it turns towards the very beginning. There's a section called Welcome to the Neighborhood by Christopher Myers. All right. Welcome to the Neighborhood. All right. So it's a short little introduction. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this if you want to just follow along with me in your book. And I want to highlight a couple things as I read this. And then eventually I'm going to have you read a story today from this book. And we're going to talk and work with that a little bit. All right. But it says, welcome to the neighborhood. My father, Walter, loved to cook. He spent hours in the kitchen tending to pots and sauces, carefully as the DJ selected music at a house party. When I would invite a friend over, he'd ask the friend what the friend couldn't eat before he'd ask their name. He'd make a menu, Google a few things, wander through Chinatown or Curry Hill or Little Italy, gathering ingredients, and arrive home proceeding to make more food than any of us could eat. He taught me what it meant to have guests. You have to take care of them. Pop practiced a kind of hospitality, the importance of making people feel welcome. It's a trait I'm happy to have learned to recognize in others as I've traveled the world. All right, I'm at the very beginning, right after the table of contents. There's a V and two I's. All right, and then the next page here, V and three I's. In Kilburra, a massive slough in Narobia, I entered the makeshift home and found a corrugated metal sheets woven together. With daylight and wind creeping in between the crevices, a woman offered me a bottle of cola and a chair. Moments before I realized it, it was only a piece of furniture in the house. In Jakarta, at a computer repair shop, there was a cup of tea. In Cairo, a woman asked if I would like some of what she was eating. Papa learned this hospitality thing growing up at home, in which there was never much, but always enough to share with your neighbor and friends if they needed it. I found he practiced that same sort of hospitality in his writing, extending an invitation to the reader that said, no matter what harrowing or amazing tale you will experience in this book, know you are welcome here. Let me share with you what I have, and we will enjoy the sharing. All right. Books are homes, have been homes, and will continue to be homes. They are places we can go when we have no other place. From my father in Harlem, caught between seemingly unreachable dreams and the realities of race and poverty in the United States. Books provided possibility, comfort, and challenge. He knew it is important that the readers feel welcome, feel that sense of hospitality. It is our jobs as writers to invite you in. Papa found that invitation in so many kinds of books and stories, such as Louisa May Alcott and James Joyce, to Gabriel Mistral, to Juan Ramon Jimenez. But there were also moments when he didn't know if he was welcome. And for those of us who have been in a place where we weren't wanted, there are few feelings that are worse. It wasn't until he encountered the work of James Baldwin that my father read a book that felt like it had been written for him. One measure of Baldwin's art is the extent of the invitation readers, even today, feel in his work. The same could be said of Papa's book. Imagine then this book you are holding, Flying Lessons, as a series of homes, of stories, a neighborhood of story houses, and you are invited into them all. Please make yourself comfortable. Each story and each kind of storytelling is different, but you are welcome to all of them. Join Grace Lynn on a creaking ship and listen to the poetry of Li Po with her. Incidentally, Pop loved Li Po's poems too. Matt De La Pina's Basketball Court is next, and that's the story we're going to read for today. It is more than a court, undoubtedly, but whatever it is, you've got to get game. You've got next game. Jackie Woodson invites you to New Hampshire, to a place where none of us feel at home. But then again, perhaps the feeling of isolation and the recognition of that feeling is an invitation too. Here's a collection of stories of hosts who have traveled through their city, tending to their words as carefully as a DJ selecting music at a house party. You are our guest. Welcome to the neighborhood. All right. So the reason I wanted to read that to all of you is the intention of this book is to welcome all of you into their stories. All right. And maybe you've had that experience where you have read something, you felt connected to it, and you have felt welcome. Maybe you have read something or been a part of reading or a part of a class where maybe you felt more like an outsider. All right. And we all have experiences probably in both of those situations. And we probably could identify some of those things. But this is something we talk about a lot as English teachers in terms of what we are assigning our students to read. And what kind of connection as students, how can you relate and how can you identify with what you're reading? All right. When I was in high school, I read a lot of stories by very similar authors. Okay, there were old guys, mostly men. Okay, some women, but mostly men, and almost all of them were white. All right, so the perspective that I was getting was fairly limited in terms of the diversity of the people and their stories and their backgrounds. All right, some of these stories were great stories, some of them not so much. All right, I liked some of them, I didn't like others, but my perspective was very limited. Fast forward several years now as your English teacher, this is something we talk about in a lot, as English teachers, is what are we having our students read And we want to have you read things that you feel comfortable or invited to be part of. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what we try to do in our class. That's what I try to do in my classes. Um, and to try to diversify what we're reading and the perspectives that we're reading about. All right. So maybe you can relate and identify with something you've read in your schooling. Maybe you couldn't relate to something that you've read. I think that's quite natural. But just know that your English teachers are trying, or at least we are trying. I am trying to find things that you can connect and relate to in some way. All right. And why do we want to do that? Is because of this importance of reading. Okay? It is so important to get into reading and to find time and devote time to reading. Reading is a magical thing. Maybe you do it a lot. Maybe you do it very little. Maybe you love it. Maybe you hate it. But it is one of those ways that you can really get out of yourself and find a new place, a new situation. You can leave your world and enter another world. That's why I'm really excited that Robert decided to get these books for you guys this summer. As we go through a couple of these stories, you will have a lot of other stories that you can read throughout the summer if you want. All right. And my challenge for you is hopefully you will. If there's one thing that you can really do to help improve yourself as a student, either in high school or even beyond in college, is to get in this habit of doing some reading. Okay. Spend 10 minutes, spend 20 minutes a day and just read. All right. If you like listening to music, put some music on and read. Okay. If that distracts you, then listen in silence. Okay. But find somewhere and try to get into some reading. All right. And like I said, some of you maybe used to read more when you were younger and now you're too busy or very busy and it's hard to find time. I get that. But maybe summer is a little bit more filled with some free time. And maybe you can fill some of this time with some reading. All right. So in this class today, you're going to have some time to read. All right. So, and then, in the next couple times we get together, we will do some reading in class. So at least you'll get a little reading in there, but my hope is that you will continue to read outside of class as well. And it really doesn't matter what you read. Find something you're interested in. If you want to read a story or a book, about, fiction, go for it. If you want to learn about, a historical event, read that. If you like online books, go for it. Read online books. If you prefer the paper books and you want to read a book in front of you, go to your library and get a book or find a book at home somewhere. All right. Or, read the book that we got for you. All right. So that is my plug for reading. All right. If you go to the next page where it says editor's note. All right. It says, "Dear reader, when I was little, I found an abandoned kitten on the street. It was mangy, flea-ridden, and mean, but so cute." All right, kind of like Kyle's kitty right there. All right, so cute, just looking at you, waiting. I loved it. We lived in an apartment building and that had a no pets allowed sign in the lobby, but I didn't care. I'd always wanted a pet. I mean, I had a baby sister, but she wasn't as fun as a kitten. I was determined to take it home, even though I knew my parents would be mad because it was against the rules. So I scooped George up. Yeah, I had already decided to name him George, tucked him close to my chest and headed for home. By the time I walked the 5 blocks to my building, I was a wreck. I looked like a monster. Not only did George manage to scratch up my entire face and chest, but he also taught me that I was terribly allergic to cats. My eyes swelled into leaky water balloons and I was covered in a huge welts that looked like radioactive leeches had attached themselves all over my body. My parents totally freaked out. When my dad took George away from me, I whispered, yelled through my swollen throat, "That's my cat." As I reached for my pet, he hissed at me and scratched me one last time in goodbye. Turns out George wasn't alone. All cats hate me, which is why I now own a dog. But I've never forgot George. He's the story my parents love to bring up at every family reunion, and how I saved a poor orphaned kitten that tried to kill me. But we all have stories like that, right? They might be milk snorting out your nose funny ones, or listen to how cool and awesome we are ones, or come close so we can whisper in your ear juicy ones. They might be old favorites or stories about new experiences. But no matter what, our stories are unique, just like we are. And that is what this book is all about. 10 diverse stories from 10 great authors for all of us. All right. So last time I had you write about some of your stories, and I had you do that in your letter to me. And part of this understanding and reading of stories is realizing we do all have stories that we can share as we dig into our lives. All right. Like I shared with you, looking back on my life, I can think of different stories that I could mention. All right. And some of you were very quick to elaborate on that in your letters to me. Some of you are like, I don't have any stories. My life's boring. Okay. And a lot of times we feel like that. We feel like we don't have a lot to share and our life isn't any different than anyone else's. But if we do some digging and we do some thinking, we can come up with something that might be insightful or interesting for someone else to engage in and to learn about. All right. So if you feel like you don't have a story or an event yet to write about or to think about, I challenge you to dig a little deeper. All right. It might take a little more time. It might take a little bit more digging. It might take a little bit more living before we come across some of those moments that maybe are worthy of sharing and telling and thinking about. All right. So just as we are going to read about some stories from other people, I also want you to kind of keep in mind of this idea of the stories that I have in my life that I can share with others as well, and the impact that can have on whether it's my friends, whether it's my family, my classmates, whoever that is. All right. So the bottom line is we all have stories that we can share that can have an impact on other people. All right. And as you go through life and as you grow, you want to think about what stories do I have that I can offer and share with others, whether I just share those with my close friends or whether I, decide to write about it for a college application essay or whatever. You want to be thinking about some of these stories and some of these times that can be impactful. All right. So one story that we all have lived the last 15 months is what this COVID experience has been like. All right. And that's something that I know for the rest of my life, I'm going to look back and reflect on this chapter at this time period and tell the story a lot. All right. And maybe you will, maybe you won't. But this is definitely something that, is going to be in your head for a long time. All right. So if you want to continue on to the next page, on page 1, we're going to read a story today about one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite sports, called basketball. I coach basketball. I played basketball in high school. I also am one of the basketball coaches at Champlain Park. I've done that longer than you guys have been alive, most of you, so long time. So I enjoy basketball a lot, but more importantly, I really enjoy team sports and what we learn by being part of a team. Whether you're playing, with your friends, football in the backyard, whether you played, played volleyball when you were little and in a volleyball team or whatever. Being part of a team and working together as a team is something that is a really valuable skill and it's a real valuable experience. And just the idea of being willing to commit to something that is strenuous and hard work. All right, I have 2 kids in my house. One kid works and has found a place in their life where they want to work to be the best at what they are working at in terms of an activity, in terms of developing their skill in their sport. All right. The other kid wants to do whatever's easiest. So if it's a matter of, hey, you want to go work on this? If it's hard, they don't want to do it. All right. If it's easy, sure. If it's hard, they don't want to face it. And we all know that when we're challenged and when we're pushed, that's when we start to make some strides and make some more progress. Now, is it fun to work hard? Not necessarily. Is it fun to run 4 miles? Maybe not. But the more you run 4 miles, the better runner you're going to become. All right. So if you want to turn to page 1, how to transform an everyday ordinary hoop court into a place of higher learning, and You at the Podium by Matt de la Pina. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the first couple pages here to you, and then I'm going to give you some time to finish this on your own. All right. And then we're going to talk about a couple things, and then I'm going to have you do a little writing. All right. So if you want to follow along with me, I'm on page 1. Like I said, I'll read the first few pages with you, and then I'm going to give you some time to read on your own. All right. It's finally summer. Go ahead, take a deep breath. You're free. All year long, your mom's has been on you like glue about algebra worksheets and science fair projects and the knee-high stack of books Mrs. Baker assigned for English class. And you did what you had to do, 2 A's and 4 B's. Truth is, you're actually pretty smart. School comes easy. You told Baker in the end of year 5-page paper what was up with Esperanzo's dreams and the symbolism of the Mango Street house. And you pulled down a 96%, second highest grade in the class. Yet even as you typed out that essay, you had an indoor-outdoor basketball in your lap. Between sentences, you daydreamed fingers rolling over outstretched hands. See, here's what all the hardcore homework pushers don't get. For people like you, basketball is more than just basketball. It's a way out, a path to those tree-lined lives they always show on TV. You've crunched the numbers and read the tea leaves. Fact is, you never hit the books as hard as boy genius Jeremiah Vila or Sylvia Diaz. Either. Even your boy Francisco from down the hall. There are folks in the world who live to mark up a fat world history textbook with an arsenal of colored highlighters. You're just not one of them, or you're not one of them yet. You spend too much time on back alley ball handling drills to compete. Nah, the game of basketball is your best chance. Fate of your hoop development. For the past 3 years, you've spent every minute balling at an outdoor court down the street from your building. After school, after games, on weekends, you name it. Most nights you're still out there putting up shots. Alone when the sun falls behind the ocean and the automatic park lights come flickering on, spilling that orange-yellow half-light across the cracked concrete. Ball is like anything else. Put in enough hours and your game's gonna blast off. Your jumper's now pure out to 25 feet, give or take. You've developed a little floater in the lane that leaves slow-footed big men flailing, but it's your handles that sets you apart, your quicks, the way you get into the paint and will finish with either hand. The past season, you scored more points than any other eighth grader in the country. You were second in assists. So what? It ain't good enough, and you know it. Now, if you want to be an even more dominant player next year in high school, that's why your ears perk up when you overhear a couple of newcomers talking about the Muna gym in Balboa Park. When you overhear the dude with the loving handle sitting on the stairs say to his boy, "It's the best run in the entire city." I put that on everything. You ranked him out? The other guy asked. Nah, I used to ball there all the time before I tweaked my back. If you can hang with the big boys at Muna, shoot, you can hang with just about anybody. Self the extra jumpers that night. Proceed instead to the local library and look up Muni Gym online. You type in the address into Google and you quickly discover it's right next to the Air and Space Museum. Your mom took you and your sis to back in the day. And the Air and Space Museum is, if your calculations are correct, is about 5 miles from your pop's job at the factory. Wander into your cramped living room after dinner that night. Work up the guts to describe for your old man the importance of competing against the best. You've outgrown the local run, and it's time for you to put foot in the deep end. So what if he doesn't even know the rules of the game? If all he does is sit there silently inside the TV, working a toothpick in his teeth. So what do you think, Pop, about what? Would it be cool if I went to work with you every morning so I could play some ball down there? He'll look at you suspiciously and then turn back to his cop show and his toothpick. You take this as a no and assume the fate of the most important summer of your hoop development now rests in the hands of the country bus system. But you'll be wrong. A few minutes later, he'll mumble, "Better have your skinny butt out by the car by 5 a.m. I'll tell you that, or else I'm leaving without you." He won't even look up when he tells you this. Doesn't matter. Your heart will race with excitement. You'll tear into the room and you share with your sis, and lay your hoop gear out on the chair by your bed like some kind of giddy schoolgirl, which is pretty much how you'll feel. There's only today. Know that when your alarm starts blaring at 4:30 a.m. the next morning, you're going to have no idea where you are or what's happening. It'll still be dark outside, your sis will be snoring. When reality finally settles in, the lazy part of your brain will try to sweet talk you back to sleep. Maybe we could, skip the Muni trip today. Go ball at the park instead. There's always tomorrow. Reach into your own skull and smack that part of your brain upside the head. If you let it, this part of the brain will hold you back from every dream you will ever have. Trust me. Crawl out of bed, reminding yourself that your old man gets up like this every single day for work, rain or shine, in sickness and in health. Your uncles too. Respect them for this. Strive to be like them. During the entire 38-minute drive south, your old man will say 2 sentences to you max. Don't take it personally. Answer his question about the gym location and how you heard about it. Buckle your seatbelt when he gives you his patented dirty looks. Before you even hit the freeway on-ramp, you'll be done talking. That's okay. Shift your focus on other details of the drive. The radio news show he turns on, the smell of his steaming black coffee, the scattered cars on the dark freeway, and the subtle tick of his turn signal whenever he changes lanes. By the end of summer, these seemingly insignificant details will be ingrained in your brain. When he parks along the street near the factory, it'll still be 3 hours before the Muni gym opens. Better have your skinny butt back here by 3:45, he'll say, snatching his lunch pail out of the back seat. It's a long walk home, I'll tell you that. After he disappears around the bend, turn your attention to the ancient Volkswagen Bug. You'll consider how the heck you're supposed to sleep inside such a tiny car. But after a little trial and error, you'll find a way. It will involve folding your 6'1" frame into a kind of human pretzel. Half of you will be in the back seat, but the other half will be curled into the front seat. Your bag strategically lodged into the center console to keep the handbrake from digging into your ribs. By day 3, the next level yoga position will feel perfectly natural. Let's get something straight before the jump. This Muni gym summer isn't going to be some kind of continuous loop of one shiny moment. There will be low points too, on and off the court. Trust me. All right, so what I want you to do right now is I want you to think about, have you ever had an experience or a point in your life where you've been super motivated to do something? All right, our character in the story here, our narrator, is super excited to be the best basketball player he can be, and he wants to play with the best at this gym halfway across town. All right, so maybe it's been a sport, maybe it's been a job, you want to work hard and make money, maybe it's getting a really good grade in a certain class. Maybe you want to save money to buy something. Have you ever been super motivated to do something in your life where you've been willing to wake up super early or do something? What was that thing? All right. So, or maybe you haven't had that experience yet. Maybe there's never been anything you've been super excited about. All right. Maybe you haven't found that passion yet. Right. Why do you think that might be? All right. Why do you think you might not have discovered that yet? All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about one of those two things. Either what is your passion? What have you been super motivated to do? And if you want to take a minute and just type that in the chat about any experience that you have had that you've been super motivated for. All right. Give you a minute to do that and just throw, you can think about school, think about an activity, a sport, anything like that. give you a couple of minutes to think about that. Share something in the chat. While you're doing that, I'll share a few stories with you. When I was younger, I really liked the stars. I liked looking at the stars. I liked learning about the stars. So I would check out all the books in my school library about the stars and constellations, and I'd read about them. And then I would want to look at the stars outside. And my parents would always be like, well, it's too late to stay outside. And, you know, I lived in town, so the city lights were hard to see the stars. But there was one person in my life, my grandfather, who was always willing to do anything with me. And whenever he knew I was interested in stars, and when I went to visit him, he lived on a farm, and he would always take me outside so we could look at the stars. So we would stay up late, and he would be willing to stay up late. And of course, as a little kid, I always liked staying up late. So we would do that. Sometimes we would get up really early in the morning to look at stars. We got up really early to look at different, you know, meteor showers or different things like that from time to time. So that's one story that I had. Give you about one more minute to throw something in if you can think of something. If not, that is okay. And then I'm going to read a couple more pages to you before I give you some time to read. All right, good example, Sophia and Xavier, about school. Sometimes maybe you're not so motivated one year or one semester, and then you start to find more motivation. And I think with distance learning, a lot of you wrote about that in your letters, and I would agree that this year's been tough for that in a lot of ways. And I'm real hopeful that come next fall, after a nice summer, we will be able to get back into a more social routine and a more academic routine. We're going to start to feel more and more ready to kind of pick up and really get back in the swing of things. All right, so. All right, thanks for sharing, those of you who did. I am on page 7. All right, I'm on page 7. I'm going to read another page for you, and then I'm going to have you read the rest of the story on your own. All right. A few weeks in, a meaty-faced cop will knock you on the windshield with your butt on his nightstick. He'll look at you through an aviator glasses, his right hand resting on his holstered handgun. Try not to panic. His suspicions will be based on 2 simple facts. It's his first time during his rounds he's ever stumbled across a kid sleeping in a 90-degree angle inside a VW Bug. And the second thing is your skin is brown. His skin will be brown too, maybe even browner, but don't spend too much time worrying yourself about this. There's a complex psychology behind this phenomenon, one you're not ready to wrap your head around. At the end of your respectful explanation, the cop will slowly remove his hands from his gun. He'll grab hold of your left elbow instead and steer you toward the front office of the factory. Your pop will be summoned embarrassingly over the loudspeaker. 2 minutes later, he'll emerge from the back looking wildly stressed. This is not because you've done anything wrong. It's because he has his own history with cops. Stuff that happened long before you were born, stuff nobody ever talks about. After the cop explains the situation, your pop will put on an uncomfortable smile and vouch for you. He'll say you're a good kid, that you're just down here to play some ball at a gym in Balboa Park. He'll shake hands with the cop enthusiastically, thanking him for his service and apologizing for any trouble he may have caused. Soon as the cop leaves, though, your pop will transform back into himself. Don't worry about that power-happy Manjejo, he'll say, rubbing your shoulder. You didn't do nothing wrong. I was just sleeping. Mexicans are allowed to sleep too. He'll look you straight in the eyes, nodding. And in this moment, you'll feel closer to your old man than ever before. Fortunately, that was the only morning you'll be woken up by a nightstick. Every other morning, it'll be the alarm on your phone, and you'll be free to climb out in the Bug at your leisure. Stretch your stiff arms and legs, breathe in the warm Hillcrest air, and remove your rock from your bag. It's time to get a move on. It won't take but 3 days to know all the shortcuts to Muni. Dribble through the middle school playground where the summer camp kids play double dutch and hopscotch and dodgeball. Dribble in and out of the sleeping cars and in massive San Diego Zoo parking lots. Dribble through the crowds of the camera-toting tourists shuffling toward the front gates of the zoo. Dribble past the various hot dog stands, the ice cream trucks, and the 2 flat tires. The leather-faced man selling raspas who looks like your late abuelito. By the end of the summer, these vendors will all recognize you and wave. It will take a little more than an hour for you to arrive at the large, dilapidated building with 2 locked green doors. Well, butterflies will dance inside your chest that first time and every time following, even years from now, amid how it should be, because you can sense it. Here's where you will learn the world. All right, we're on the bottom of page 9. So the reality is anytime in life when we have experiences, they oftentimes don't turn out the way we think or we hope them to do. And as maybe you can sense, this experience is going to be a little different than what our narrator is hoping for. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about 15 minutes. All right. I'm going to give you to about 11:05 or so to finish reading the rest of this story. All right. I will give you something. We left off on page 9 where it says sentence to the bleachers. All right. So take some time to do some reading. All right. And then we will talk about this a little bit, and then I'm going to give you a little writing to do after that. All right. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. All right. If not, just continue reading this story on page 9, and we'll do that for the next 15 minutes. Unmute your mic. You can unmute your mic and share it. If you'd rather type it in the chat, you can do that as well. But I personally would love to hear some voices. So if you're willing to share, please do so. Don't worry about if you have the right or wrong answer, or if it might not be totally right or whatever. A lot of these are, there are lots of right answers. But it would be good to have some conversation around this. So my first question is what are some of the challenges that the narrator faces? All right, what are some of the challenges that he faces as he's getting in this gym wanting to play ball with these guys? All right, either type it in the chat, or if you want to say something, just unmute and spit it out. Anyone think of any challenges he faces? Yes, waking up early is a challenge. Has anyone been up at 4:30 in the morning before? It's been a long time since I've been up at 4:30 in the morning. Especially in the summertime, that would be a challenge. Any other challenges you think he faces? All right, yes. Some discrimination when he's pulled out. Being able to play basketball, some of the things the guys say to him in terms of not allowing him to play because he's young, they don't think he's good. One of the ideas in this book that is brought up is he talks about a little bit about silence and how his dad was very silent. His dad would never say a whole lot to him, and he was kind of hoping his dad would say more, especially when he was complaining about not being allowed to play, and he didn't know if it was worth it, and he's kind of reaching a low point. He was hoping his dad maybe would encourage him a little bit, and his dad said nothing. All right, so he has this response of silence where he's hoping that his parents, his dad would be more interested in his game, more interested in the sport. They didn't really seem to have anything to say. So what I have for you in the chat that I put in right now is, how do you respond to silence? From your parents when they're silent, from your friends, from your teachers, from classmates. How do you respond to silence? Do you enjoy silence? Does it make you uncomfortable? Do you sometimes want to fill the silence and want people to talk more? Type a response in the chat, but don't hit return yet. Just give me a couple thoughts on what's your attitude, or how do you respond to silence? All right, is it something you appreciate, you enjoy, or something that is frustrating for you? Just type something up, what comes in your mind, and then just don't hit return yet. I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes, and then we'll hit return at the same time. All right, I'll give you about 30 more seconds here to type in the chat a thought on silence. How do you respond to silence from those around you? All right, if you're finished, you can hit return. All right. And then you can read through a couple of your classmates' thoughts. Definitely depends on the context. A lot of you guys are mentioning on the situation. I agree with that. So I agree with Rose. It can make me uncomfortable sometimes. I try to fill silence. That was one of the challenges as a teacher with online learning, when I would ask questions and people were silent. Be like, what do I do next? But after I did this a while, I started realizing, throwing things in the chat like this makes it a little easier for people to communicate, and you feel a little more comfortable doing that as well. And then there are other times when I'm perfectly okay with silence. Around the house with my family, we're driving somewhere, people are silent, that's fine. All right, thanks for your responses on that. If you turn to page 18, one of the characters in the story, this guy named Dante, he is the player of all players, the MVP of the gym, it seems like, who really kind of challenges our narrator and kind of kicks him down and pushes him down, and kind of tells him, hey, you're not good enough to play here. You're too young. We don't want you here. It's pretty disrespectful to him. But then on the bottom of page 19, in the middle of this debate, a straight jumper will roll out of bounds toward you, and Dante will give chase. He'll grab the rock and kneel down, not 5 feet from you, to tie his shoe. Hey, kid, he'll say in a quiet voice, yeah. He'll look up at you mid-double knot. You want to get in games. You don't just sit there like a punk, right? You stand up and challenge the baddest dude in the gym, someone like me. Do your thing, understand? All right, so Dante does break the silence and gives him this piece of advice that if he wants to get involved and wants to play and be part of this group, he needs to stand up for himself, and he needs to challenge maybe the best person in the gym or the best person there, which is quite kind of a sport athletic thing where you challenge the best and try to push the best to see what happens. But a lot of times in life, we need to challenge and push back against people. And for a lot of us, that's not easy. Those people sometimes might be your teachers, it might be your parents, it might be others, might be friends, but you have to push back a little bit, all right, and find the courage to do that. And in this story, our narrator, by being able to push back and being willing to push back against Dante, um, allows him to gain the respect of those people around him and allows him to get more involved in the games and then being able to show what he can do on the court. But it wasn't until he was willing to push back when that happened. All right. So it's easy for us not to push back sometimes. And I'm not saying that we should always push back. But when we're faced with those kind of situations, I think we do need to think about when is the right time to push back. Whether it's something personal, like, hey, I need to stand up for myself here, or pushing back against bigger things that are going on in our community, in our schools, okay, in our country. So I think that's an important lesson to learn from here as well. So the ending of this story is kind of interesting, and kind of the main theme or the main message that he's getting at here. He talks about writing this essay for school, and the thing that he learned on page 22, what I learned is when a man who stays mostly quiet offers advice, you take it. All right, and that man who was mostly quiet was his dad. Okay, his dad never really gave him advice, never really said much, and then finally told him something that didn't make sense to him. He told him that he should have accepted the hot dog from the guy who he was playing with and not necessarily worry about what he was thinking about that situation. And the idea there is, if people don't say much, when they do say something, we should maybe pay attention to it. Maybe we agree with it, maybe we disagree with it, but there's a reason they're saying what they're saying. There are people who talk a lot and say a lot of things. Maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you know people who are like that, who are always talking and saying lots of things. Not that what they're saying isn't important, but when someone who says very, very little says something, clearly there is some intention behind what they say. All right. And just the same way, if you find yourself as being one of those people who maybe doesn't say a lot from time to time, when you do say something, realize that people are going to listen to that. Right. Because there's some reason behind what you're saying, and that's important. And we should pay attention to what people are saying. If they don't offer a lot, the little things they do say might be pretty important to take in. All right, so I think that's a big lesson from this story, is learning to listen and realizing what people have to share. And as frustrated as he was with his dad, not having a lot of conversation with him, on the ride to the gym every morning, not talking about his passion, basketball, not understanding the game, not being able to talk the talk. When he did finally give him a little bit of advice, he realized afterwards that it was important for him to listen to that. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed that story. Hopefully you got something from it. If you didn't get a chance to finish it all, or maybe you feel like you didn't get all of it, go back and read it again if you have some time. I read the story 2 or 3 times through, and each time I read it, I got a little bit more details out of it, and it definitely made a little bit more of an impact with me. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is there is a free write that I want you to do in Google Classroom, and I will post that in the chat as well. But basically, I want you to write about a lesson that you have learned from someone else in your life. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a teacher, it could be a coach, it could be an advisor, could be a classmate. But what is a lesson that you have learned from someone else? Explain the situation a little bit about what you learned and why you think this is an important lesson for you. All right, so give me a paragraph or two on that. I just posted it in Google Classroom under the English topic. It says English Week 3 free write. Looking for a paragraph or two. And then when you're done, obviously I want you to turn that in. All right, so I'm gonna pause there. I'm gonna allow Maylee or Kyle, if you guys wanna do the weekly winners or the daily winners for today. And then you guys can just write that and type that up and try to turn that in before the end of the day. So I can read those before I see you the next time, which will be after the 4th of July. And then I'll comment on a little bit of what you have written for that. All right. So does anyone have any questions about what I want you to write about? Anyone have any questions on that? All right. All right. Whoever's doing the daily winners, if you guys want to do that.
Yep. So Melissa, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. You can pull up the daily prizes, please. So the first winner for today is Akulong. Remember, please send me what you want as well as your address. Your full address, please. So including zip code and city. Hana? Gaoqishi? Dania? You can just let me know in the chat. Just message me privately. And Amanda. Yes, you did, Dania. So today's winners are Akulong, Hana, Gaoqishi, Dania, and Amanda.
Yay.
Akulong, what's your last name? Yes, Mr. Larson, I can stay after.
Awesome. All right, so we are done with prizes, right?
Yes.
All right. So the rest of you, you have that free right to write for me. If you want to stay on and write, that's fine. All right, if you want to just sign off, that's fine as well. But please turn that in before the end of the day. Spend maybe 10 minutes. If you want to write more, that's great. But give me a good paragraph or so about a lesson that you've learned from someone else. Someone else has taught you something. Maybe they intentionally tried to teach you something. Maybe it was just something how they acted or responded in a situation. All right, so give me a good paragraph or two. Give me at least 10 minutes or so. If you want to write more, that's great. But try to turn that in by the end of the day and read through those, and we'll talk and work with those a little bit the next time I see you, which will be after the 4th of July. So have a great rest of the week. Hopefully you get to see some fireworks somewhere over the 4th. And feel free to stay on if you have any questions for me as well. Otherwise, that is all for me.
We turn it in Google Classroom, right?
Yep. Yep. Just turn them in. I created that assignment for you. You just turn it in there.
Amanda, do you need the picture again? Oh, she left.
I can reach out to her. She didn't message you?
No, she was confused about it, so.
Okay.